All right, so this is the third video lecture on the topic of death and dying, or what's it say? I forget the name of the chapter exactly. I left off, and I was talking about some of the arguments, both in support of assisted suicide and the arguments in opposed to assisted suicide. And I suggested I wanted to come back to the slide because of the idea of hospice care. So, hospice is both an idea and a place. And what hospice refers to is when people have been declared terminal. And usually that means they're expected to die in the next 6 weeks. And doctors say that this person is not expected to live the next 6 weeks. They will be put into hospice care. And hospice care is where a patient is given just palliative, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce the word, palliative care. Basically, they're just given care that reduces their pain and suffering. So doctors have suspended treatment or attempts to cure the illness and treat the illness, and instead they just focus on making this person comfortable. Some places have a hospice house, like Manhattan has a facility where when doctors have said that you are terminal and you enter hospice care, you go stay at this particular facility, and they're often quite home like. And again, there's no attempt at treatment. There's just about keeping people comfortable. Or you can receive hospice care at your home. So when my father was in hospice, and he was only in hospice care for about 2 weeks, he was given, pain medicines and things like, morphine, which is considered highly addictive. Once you are in hospice care, you would there would be no concern about becoming addicted to morphine because obviously you're at the end of your life. And then after my father died at home, hospice came, and then you might get what's called respite care. So this is somebody who will come and sit with your loved ones if you have to go to the grocery store or if you just have to take a break. You'll often get some supportive therapy. My mom went to a support group where she met her next husband, actually at a support group. And then when they came after my father passed, and it's kind of like death education, right? Because there's somebody there to help you understand what's happening to your loved one. What can you expect, right? So you can expect this person. In my dad's case, he had seizures, and that they're gonna their bowels are going to basically their bowels are going to empty. So we might want to prepare the bed for when their bowels empty, and then after they pass, and someone would come and take their body, and so it's just all of those things that once upon a time we would have learned because we would have been around people who've died, but because we don't have that experience anymore, I think it takes a special kind of person to go into hospice care. And they say that if you are a friend and you are allowed into a home of someone at the end of their life, that is a privilege because it's a very private kind of time for our culture. Okay, so now let's talk about grief and bereavement. Basically, what this slide is, the first part of it is there are a whole bunch of different ways to acknowledge the passing of somebody. Our culture traditionally has a funeral. And traditionally, funerals are often they're in a church or in a funeral home, and people are expected to be sad, these kinds of things. But there's other ways to do it too. The wake, which is actually supposed to be kind of a festive kind of thing. I have been to one true wake in my life, and it was an academic professional. And when he died, he reserved the alumni center, K-State Alumni Center. They had a live band, they had an open bar, and they had different food stations. And at one food station, and then they had like dancing rituals. And at one food station, they had what Tony had when he went on vacation. And another food station, they had what he had in his freezer. And it was truly a party. It is the only, well, I went to one actually last weekend, didn't have live dancing or live music, but it had an open bar and it had buffet, and there was laughter at that one too. But most of the time in our culture, it's quite somber. right? But other cultures. So going back to one of these previous pictures, right? This is called a funeral pyre, and that's the deceased is actually underneath all of those sticks, and that would be it's like a public cremation. Or you could sit a shiva. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce that one. And that's a Jewish tradition, and that's for, I believe, 6 days. The loved ones just stay at home. They cover the mirrors and they wear black, and people can come and visit them while they sit the shiva, and they have to sit for a certain number of days. I believe a suti. I think that one refers to when a woman when her husband dies, she throws herself on the funeral pyre, right? So basically, she commits or she dies by suicide. She burns to death voluntarily. I think that's what it refers to. And there's other sort of traditions. I've heard of some traditions where they grow their hair. They don't cut their hair ever after their loved one dies. Various different things. Okay. Point is these are all um, culturally influenced and culturally determined. And part of what I ask you in that assignment is what kind of end of life ritual. These end of life rituals, thing is these are really only about the living, right? We have no rituals in our culture, in our Christian mainstream American culture for the dying. Oh, maybe if if someone comes to bring you communion, but in other cultures there are traditions that prepare the individual for death. Our culture simply has something that we acknowledge after our loved one has died. Bereavement and grief. So bereavement is simply a cultural acknowledgement that you are the bereaved, somebody in your life has died, right? So it's an acknowledgement that you have experienced death. Grief is that emotional response. That you can go that we were talking about in a previous slide, right? That goes through the various steps. This is the grief. This is the objective phenomena situation that you are in. You are bereaved. Okay, so I found this one does not come with our textbook, but I found this a few years ago about and sometimes we don't know what to say when someone dies, especially if we haven't experienced ourselves. And so we will mistakenly say things that are not necessarily helpful simply because we don't know. And so what I've tried to offer you here are some hints as to what is what is the best things to say. The general theme is that we should encourage people to feel whatever they need to feel. That a supportive person does not offer explanations or solutions or tell people how they're supposed to respond. So if you look over here at the things not to say, it's be strong, not helpful, right? Not helpful, right? Because you're telling them what they're supposed to be. And the supportive person listens, acknowledges their suffering, but does not try to diminish their suffering by saying things like, I know how you feel. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because you're not me. You don't know how I feel. Or tells you that there's a reason for this. That's not what the bereaved or the person grieving needs to hear, right? That there's an explanation or that somehow their life is better with their gone. They are suffering. They are sad. Let them feel their sadness, acknowledge their sadness. That's the most supportive thing that a person can do. Or what is this one? Oh, he's in a better place. No, that's not helpful because right now I'm sad and I'm lonely, right? And it does not help for you to say that they are better off, right? Okay, and that, my friends, is the end of the death and dying chapter. And I believe that is actually the end of the semester, except for your final exam. All right. Well, thank you for listening.